It's never not going to be anything. I think that's one of the things that I'm trying to teach my daughter right now about life. It's just like, no, no, no. It's about how you deal with the adversity. The adversity is like on the way.
It's always going to be there. There's always going to
Yeah,
be something. Yeah.
the variable in the equation. It's the X that's there when you're doing like your calculus and your derivatives, and you
Yeah.
got to rework your formulas and plug them back into different, formulas. It's that for real. But life is like that in that sense, and it's like, well, it's going to be about how you respond to it and deal with it. So it's like I'm trying to teach you not to be too high, too low.
I'm going to have to keep some of that conversation for the beginning of this because it actually segues very nicely with what we're talking about today, which is Nas's "The World Is Yours" and Simon and Garfunkel's song "The Boxer," which are both kind of coming of age-ish songs, sort of, kind of. Where do you want to start?
I want some further explanation from you to maybe like where the theme. Well, I can get the theme of the song.
Mm-hmm.
I was looking for a better compass of the story because it is so lyrically dense.
Yeah, you're talking about the Boxer.
Yeah, I'm talking about the Boxer.
Right, sure.
And I mean, both of the songs' messages are lyrically dense, but
yes,
obviously,
for sure.
the one that I'm less familiar with,
Right.
I think I need just more of a roadmap of what they are truly trying to convey message wise. Like I understand the ethos, but it's like I don't totally understand the purpose. And I thought that was kind of cool because I enjoyed the record, but I thought this was a record. I was like, well, Andrew can really maybe teach me a lot today.
I hope so. I don't know. Maybe not, but I am really excited about talking about Nas because I know for sure you can teach me a lot about that. 100%. So, a little bit of backstory. One of the reasons I chose these two songs to go together is because both Paul Simon and Art Garfunkel, the two people in this group, grew up in Queens too, which Nas did too, pretty famously. So they met as elementary school students actually. I looked it up on a map that where they grew up is like their elementary school or whatever, because it said it on Wikipedia. Their elementary school is like maybe 10 miles from the Queensbridge complex. So it's not far at all.
Okay.
So it's over near like Koreatown, Chinatown, kind of that.
Well, I say near like Farmers.
Yeah, that kind of area.
Yeah, Farmers, Jamaica area.
Yeah. So the song is, I don't know if I know you are, but I don't know if the listeners are familiar with Catcher in the Rye. The story is that kind of story. Like it's a kid who's left home and is trying to make his way sort of in the world and dealing with all the stuff that happens to him. So one of the interesting comparisons that we're going to have to talk about is how this song was like 1969, 8, like late 60s. The differences between how white, I think Jewish, actually, both of them are Jewish, kids navigated New York City, Queens, when they were growing up in like the 50s, as opposed to Nas, who was writing these songs when he was 17, 18, right?
Correct.
In like the early 90s. Geographically, the two of them, like the three of them, really had the same sort of experience, like as far as like weather and crap like that, right? Like, and living in New York, but the experiences, as far as I can tell, were very, very, very different. Like the way they grew up.
Yes, comparable visual aids. I think one of the most striking things that you'll find, even in other artists who come out of Queens, is that the artists that come out of Queensbridge are different. And a lot of that is because, well, quite frankly, Queens, and it's funny, Andrew, I was at the Braves game this past Sunday. One of my dear friends, her boyfriend is from Southside Jamaica, Queens.
Okay.
Me and him were actually talking about some of the guys that Nas is actually referencing on The World Is Yours. And he was explaining to me how, like, when you're in Queens, like the 40 side of Queens, that's houses.
Yeah.
Sub.
Right.
So the side that Simon and Garfunkel are growing up on,
Right.
or a suburban residential area. Don't get it twisted. It's still New York, and it's still a borough in New York. And so Queens can, just like all the other boroughs, it's got its pockets
Right.
where it's, and like most boroughs in New York, well, it's compressed and compact. So the Jews are there, the Italians are there, blacks are there, what.
Yeah.
And but he said something to me that I thought was striking, and this is why we're at the Braves game. He said, but it's different when you're in Queensbridge. Queensbridge is a housing complex. It's a project. Those aren't houses, those are projects. It's actually the largest project tenement in the entire nation. And so literally just going those 5 to 10 miles that you're talking about,
yeah,
it can still seem like another world to the kids that are inside of the bridge. And he was even explaining to me there's another hip hop group, Capone and Noriega. Noriega's from Left Rack. He's like, yeah, Left Rack, Queensbridge. He's like, that's Queens. He's like, but that's different, in terms of how they're insulated and isolated within those blocks and those projects. So just giving like some perspective from somebody who's from Queens that just happened to share this with me. Like, this was my first time meeting him. You know what I mean?
That's cool. Like, I definitely get the perspective from listening to these two songs that they're completely different worlds. Like, I thought it was important to say, like, kind of what you were saying, like they lived very geographically close to each other, but their lived experiences were just about as different as you can get given where they both lived.
Yes, but you know what? Scenery wise, I think they're seeing some of the same painful things, because there's a dreariness to the Simon and Garfunkel music I'm coming to find that is very comparable to Nas's like early, like, life's a bitch and then you die type of ethos. You'll find his early material when he's coming out of Queensbridge, like the you see now that's like, life is good and the tech master and like that's not the guy that's coming out of Queensbridge. Like, I tell people, the guy that's out of Queensbridge is talking about going to hell for snuffing Jesus, like somebody that's using that type of verbiage and looking at things from that perspective is, quite frankly, being traumatized by some of the things that they're seeing. And they're
holding guns in all the baby pictures. Yeah, sure.
Right. Holding guns at all my baby pictures. Yeah. And so there doesn't appear to be that same pain or dark cloud hanging over Simon and Garfunkel, but there appear to be remnants of it that almost make you feel like, oh, there's something about Queens. You know what I mean?
And that's why I wanted to put those two together, because they both, I think, evoke different versions of that place.
Yes, and they're both very dense as writers and lyrically. And usually who you are as a writer comes from your early experiences about what you see and where you're from. So the fact that they're both dense as writers says a lot about right.
Yeah, man, I think it's super cool. So
this song, the Boxer, felt like a coming of age song to me.
It is.
Okay. Sure. Yeah. Okay. So here's what I question. See, our coming of age songs in hip hop and this is what I mean about, maybe you can educate me. Well, our coming of age songs kind of play like the Notorious B.I.G.'s Juicy does. It's kind of usually rags to riches when we do coming of age story. And so what is his background looking like? Because it just seems like, is he coming from a broken home?
That's my impression. He never says in the song,
right? It feels broken.
I don't want to and I would imagine this is more of a character than it is the real life of either of them. But it certainly seems like a kid who is running away from something. Like he says, I left my home and my family. I was no more than a boy in the company of strangers in the quiet. Like he leaves his home as a kid, probably 14, 15, 16 years old, and is like wandering the streets basically. And so my guess, context wise, given the clues that he gives us, is that he was in like a working class kind of home, like his dad worked down at the docks or whatever, like in the story of the song, and was not a super pleasant human being, I would imagine. And he's like running away from that. So it's not exactly riches to rags, but it is it is because certainly the person in this story, the boxer, isn't coming from a wealthy circumstance. You don't get that. I don't
Right.
get that impression at
Right.
all, but is certainly coming from a more comfortable circumstance than it would be just wandering the streets. Right.
Correct. Okay. So it kind of came off to me like, I'm like, okay. And this is what I mean. He's coming from a dysfunctional slash abusive home.
Mm-hmm.
And so, Queens is like a hard, gruff working man's town. And
Yeah.
so he's maybe not in poverty, because if you're in poverty, you're
Right.
probably in Queensbridge or Left Rack. You feel me?
Yep.
But probably not, well, they're not living in Manhattan. They're not
No.
living in, or certain parts of Long Island. And so, with that being said, I kind of hear somebody that comes from very workmanlike circumstances,
Yeah.
but there appears to be something in this song, like that touches your emotional nerve. It's like, well, is this guy's home okay? Is home okay? Home doesn't feel okay in this song, and so it kind of gives you the space as a listener. Think it's like, well, is dad an alcoholic and abusive to mom?
That's what I've always felt like listening to
Right.
this.
That's what it feels like. Doesn't it feel
Yeah.
that way?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Like I just got to get out of here. Like it's that kind of. I mean, some of that is the Springsteen pulse, like the I've got to like breaking free of blah blah blah, but it doesn't have the same. I mean, to me, listening to these two songs, "The World Is Yours" is much more hopeful than "The Boxer" is. I mean, I wouldn't call it a hopeful song necessarily, but I would say that it seems like somebody who had more is like talking kind of in a darker kind of way, like the world is screwed and I am like there's not a whole lot I can do about it. And and Nas is saying, the world is yours and that it belongs to you too. Like it's not I don't know, maybe I'm misreading that, but
No, I mean, the world is yours. It comes from a few different places and we can unpack it, but it's like, well, the beautiful thing about the world is yours is that he's actually taking a bleak day in the life of a kid out of
right.
the biggest projects in America, and he's making it sound beautiful. That's what I mean with the message.
That's what I was trying to say. You said it way better than me.
Yeah. I mean, it's literally a bleak day in the projects for him. But it's like, and that's the beautiful thing about Illmatic is that through all these painful, intense circumstances and struggle, he keeps finding the beauty in it and expressing it to you in beautiful fashion, very poetically. And so
his
it's
poetry is
very
extraordinary. We'll talk
right. His
about that
poetry is
later too.
extraordinary on the album, and so it's very enchanting because of that. Because you're like, man, like it's actually, if you listen to it, not much positive rhetoric going on in the song. And so it leaves you wondering, outside of the hook, the rhetoric's not positive, and it leaves you wonder, why does it sound so beautiful?
Yeah.
Why does it sound so perfect?
Like if you're not paying close attention to the words, it feels like an uplifting song. Like
right.
just like the mood of it, like the vibe
you're just
of it.
following the melody to the hook and the vibe and just rapping the words wrong. You're like, yeah, like that's my joint,
And then you like listen to it. Yeah, that's darker than that. But yeah, that's what I was trying to say. Like it is taking something. They're almost like mirror images of each other. One is taking something incredibly bleak and making it beautiful, and someone else is taking something that could be beautiful, like a walk around New York City, and making it showing the dark side of it, right?
Very, visually, it's like when I saw the Boxers, like remember Boulevard of Broken Dreams?
Yeah,
very much same kind
it's
of.
it's the antecedent of that kind of song. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I never would have thought about that, but yeah, absolutely, it's the same idea.
Yeah, that's what I heard. I'm a Green Day fan, so
yeah.
I mean, when I heard
think Boulevard of Broken Dreams is probably talking about LA, I think, but I mean they're Oakland, they're like West Coast Berkeley guys.
Yeah, they're West Coast. Yeah. But as a fan of theirs, when I heard this song, I'm always looking for somebody that I can kind of like compare to and be like, okay, is the ethos similar to that? And that was the song that I probably am most familiar with from popular music culture that I could kind of pull from modern day times and be like, okay, similar ethos, just updated. Simon and Garfunkel are more gritty, but they're from Queens. Green Day is from LA, like you said, or kind of valley-ish, mid, central. Yeah. So.
Yeah.
Well, can I ask you something? Are you
Yeah,
a
for sure.
fan or some? So I guess for me, with some of the artists that we choose,
Hmm.
everybody that we've chosen on my side, I'm big fans of.
Yeah.
How, I mean, I need to start asking, how big a fan are you, or some of the people that we're covering? I mean, obviously the Beatles and the Stones and stuff like that is kind of like, well, that's easy because it's hard not to like that stuff.
Yeah.
That's easy. But Simon and Garf, they feel more cultish to me.
I
How
love
big?
Simon and Garfunkel. Simon and Garfunkel. This is actually a personal story. Like
Okay,
they were one of my dad's favorites, so
okay,
I learned about them through him. There are bands. I mean, the bands that we grew up with, REM, Radiohead, and Green Day, like the ones that were huge, Pearl Jam, those kind of bands that were huge, like early, mid, late '90s, like those are the ones that I grew up listening to. But like so I've had to do some research to like fill in like the historical gaps
hmm
around these things. I listened to Paul Simon a lot. It was his album Graceland is one of the getting me through the lockdown COVID whatever. Like it's one of the it's a very uplifting
so I get you.
um kind of thing. And that was one of those moments were ones where I mean, most of the stuff that I'm working on another project too. I've told you about this, about going kind of poetry of some of these more '90s bands, and playing some of them and talking about them. And
Right.
I've gone into the lyrics a little more in depth because of that reason. And most of that stuff's really super fucking dark, dude. Like it's really, really, really dark. So
Most
it's
music is.
yeah. So I was looking for things to listen to that weren't that. Um, so
Right.
we
No, I
can get
understand.
into Paul Simon's Graceland later. It's interesting because Graceland's interesting because Graceland's Elvis's home too. So but he's talking about it not in Elvis's sense. He's just talking about it as a place like to go visit with his kid. Like it's not
Right.
um as an iconic place or whatever. Um,
He's treating it like a theme park.
yeah, yeah.
Mhm.
Um, but that whole record's great. But Simon and Garfunkel, um, it's just a fascinating interpersonal thing for me. Like the two of them, most people they broke up as a band like 1970, 71, 70, like that kind of early 70s, right after Bridge Over Troubled Water. Lots of bands broke up about that time, but you know, time passes, they get they don't maybe like Fleetwood Mac's a good example of this. Like they still play concerts together. I mean, we'll talk more about them in a different episode because there's so much to get into with them. But the like Lindsey Buckingham and Stevie Nicks were a couple, and the McVies were a couple, and like
Right.
so later, like they hated each other for a while, and then you get back together, and not romantically back together, but like playing together, and when you're when you're 60s and 70s or whatever, you start you know dealing with each other fine. Like as long as it becomes one of those kind of friends that you make good music with, and like as long as I don't have to live with them or deal with them on a daily basis or ride a tour bus with them, then we're fine, right?
New Edition. New Edition came to mind when you said that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But Simon and Garfunkel don't like each other still now, like 50
Okay.
years later.
So let's unpack something right quick because
Yeah.
I'm actually more familiar with Paul Simon than I am Simon and Garfunkel.
Yeah.
So, what happened to Garfunkel, and how did this breakup occur? Over what? It's usually
Um,
over money.
this one, as far as I know, wasn't a woman. This was
That's money.
Paul Simon was this is what I've read. Okay, now I don't know that this is true, but um, it was more that Art liked the drugs and drinking and stuff like that, and Paul Simon was like music, 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 music,
That
and
sounds
and he was just like, I'm not dealing with. I mean, I'm sure Garfunkel was like not showing up for stuff and that kind of thing. Like it's and he, I mean, you can watch interviews with Paul Simon. He can come off as, I wouldn't call him a prick, but he is a little bit prickly. Like he's not like
comes off standoffish.
he's not this jovial
It's that
die.
Queen. It might.
Yeah, exactly. Like there's a little prickly around the edges.
Yes.
So but
Yeah.
there's also the like
Isn't there
the
some Lil Man
ethos
syndrome?
that I get from him is like you cross me never again. Like
Right. Like it's a little Lil Man
if you
syndrome.
fuck me over once, then you're gone forever.
That Napoleon complex.
Yeah.
Little Napoleon complex going on, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So,
And so
so
so the interaction between the two of them, like it's fascinating because Paul Simon's an incredible songwriter, like is one of the greatest to ever live. And Garfunkel's got the voice. Paul Simon's got a decent voice, but our Garfunkel is his voice is like the voice of the angels. Like it's incredible. So the there's an iconic story where when they were inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, that was the first time they had played together in 25 or 30 years or whatever.
wow. Hold on. So how many albums did they do together?
Um, 4 or 5.
Yeah, New Edition.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like New Edition.
And the first ones, I mean, like the first ones didn't hit, and then they re-released some of the other. It was that kind of thing. The first one was called Wednesday Morning 3 a.m., which didn't really do anything at all. And then the Sound of Silence is one.
Garfunkel had a solo career too.
Sort of ish, yes.
He released like 1 or 2 albums though, right?
He did, yes. They were not like a thing.
I worked in a record store, and I can remember his stuff being on the shelf and at Manifest on South Boulevard.
Yeah. It is
it
did exist. Like he did
Yeah.
do it. And he was an actor in a couple things like in the 80s.
But Paul Simon was clearly the star because he had the songwriting ability. Is pretty much what you're saying. The songwriting ability superseded the voice.
Yeah, but it's an interesting question to think about whether Paul Simon would have been able to break through as a songwriter without having done that
Without
first.
Voice.
Right. I mean,
Right.
I mean, he had a long and distinguished solo career afterwards. So he's clearly capable of doing it, but I don't know. It's hard. It's an interesting question whether it would have happened if he hadn't done the other first. And people because people obviously already knew who he was at that point.
Right.
So.
I kind of some of what you're kind of like explaining personally about Simon and Garfunkel is how I feel about the artist Sade. It's like, well, I grew up on her.
Mm-hmm.
She was like my mother's favorite, so I was never really even clear on how big she was until I became an adult and kind of like had to backtrack and see because she was big in my house. You know what I mean? It's like, how big was she? It's like, oh no, she's a big deal everywhere. It's like, oh okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, in true to form, it's like my daughter's middle name is Sade. So
yeah, and Sade's so smooth, man. Like, I mean, it's just
operating.
Yeah.
And
Art Garfunkel is kind of that way. Like that voice is just and the Boxer is more of a Paul Simon song. Like it's mostly him singing.
No. Yeah.
So usually the ones where you have the stories being told are him. And are mostly him singing. So yes, I love their music. But I didn't know a ton about their personal history. Like the iconic Rock and Roll Hall of Fame story, like when they were inducted, Garfunkel goes first and says, you know, thank you, blah, 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 blah. And thanks to Paul Simon for writing these incredible songs that you allowed me to play some small part in lending my voice to, or something like that. And Paul Simon said something else, and I should have written it down. I don't want to misquote him, but something to the effect of, "You're damn right, I dragged you along," or something. I mean, he didn't say exactly those words in that tone, but basically that. Like, yeah. And I mean, obviously, you're setting that up to say like, "Oh, you helped me a lot too. Your voice is so beautiful." I mean, that kind of thing. And he's like, "No, like,
he's pretty much saying if I would have had your voice, I would have never needed you."
Yeah, exactly. And he's not wrong. Like, but
I mean, there are so many people. I mean, that's another conversation for another day about how people, you know, deal with fame and music and contributions to the music and so on and so forth. So you're saying that it's like, remember I was saying it's like it's usually over a girl or over money. Well, this was about money still at the end of the day, because truthfully, when Paul Simon became big enough and became famous enough that he didn't need him.
Yeah, he's like,
right. And like I said, so that's still the money involved. That like money something to do with that. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah.
It might have something to do with the drug and the alcohol intake. Because hey, guess what?
Yep.
That guy couldn't get loaded like that when y'all were probably two, you know, lower middle
Right.
class kids coming out of Queens. You know,
Yep.
can't buy no
Exactly.
8 ball with you can't buy no 8 ball with
Yeah.
dad's
Exactly.
wharf money. You know what I mean? He's working
Yep.
at the docks. He don't buy no 8 balls with that money, but there is buying 8 balls with rock star money and doing
Oh yeah.
rock star things, you know? So this is one of those stories to me, just from the outside looking in. It's like money coming and corrupting the situation again. And that's why I brought up the Q-tip line about just being comfortable and not
Yeah.
being rich. Because sometimes being rich is more dangerous. Like sometimes it's better that you have enough for what you need and just enough to save to have the life that you know what I mean God wants for you than to have like all this excess, because this excess, you know,
Yeah.
leads to breakups.
Exactly. I want to have. You just want to have enough that you don't have to really particularly think about it. Like it's not. I
Right.
mean, you still think about it because you got plan for your kids and stuff like that. But like, it's not. You're not worrying about where the next whether I'm going to be able to pay this thing or this thing. It's just you're just. I don't have to think
Right.
about it in that way. You want to get into the lyrics of the boxer? Or do you want to like talk some about Nas?
I'm either way. I mean, you know, we talk. I think we've done a synopsis of the boxers. If you want to get into some of the specifics of the lyrics, like that's why I kind of wanted you to guide like the specifics of the lyrics, because
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to be able to connect the dots more than speaking to the lyrics. Because I think we've kind of discussed this already. Well, you can tell the songwriting talent's there.
Yeah.
Because like songwriting wise, it feels like he almost wrote two separate songs and put them together.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You know, that's that songwriting talent stuff where it's like, well, it sounds like he took some of this, piece that, wove it together, used some connective tissue, you know, some
Yeah.
connecting words, conjunctive words,
Mm-hmm.
classic. You know, so there's some of that going on. It's lyrically dense. This is the most, I think, lyrically dense song, in my opinion, in terms of songwriting that we've had.
Yeah. Except
Because
maybe
there's some,
Joni Mitchell. Yeah.
I was thinking of Joni Mitchell, but there's something about this that does feel more real than that.
Yeah. This has a grittier edge for sure.
Yes, there it is.
It's a
That's
different.
what I was for.
Yeah.
It's grittier. It's grittier than the Joni Mitchell. Right.
And it feels in a way like Wu-Tang and Meth, like those kinds of, it has
Yes.
that edge to it, which is really funny because Simon and Garfunkel had the reputation in the 60s and 70s of being like these, I don't want to use the word candy ass, but like they were like the easy listening folk band, like they're like the intro into folk band, because some of that shit that was coming out like Greenwich Village and stuff like that was like
Right. Really hip.
hardcore communist like kind of stuff. So they were where you know people like overlook some people's artistry because they have beautiful voices. Um, like you miss out on the actual depth of the lyrics. It was that kind of thing with them.
Right.
Um,
Like they're a little too lily white for my taste. So next.
yeah, yeah,
I mean,
people.
I can be that way in hip hop respects to some artists, you know,
Mhm,
because I'm a Wu Tang fan, I'm a Biggie fan, I'm a Tupac fan. Like
right,
those guys have edge, you
yeah,
know, like there's edge that comes with it. So like when some of these guys are cleaned up like a little bit too much, I'm like, what the fuck is this guy? I'm like,
yeah,
man, get this guy out my
yeah,
face. And I'm like, what is this? Like, is this rap or it's like who is this guy? You know,
mhm,
sometimes. So I've been that guy. Like I'll give you an example of somebody who I wasn't like that bad about it, but when Nelly came out, remember when
yeah,
Nelly came out, the Country Grammar? I was like, what in the I was like, what in the fuck is it? I'm like, what is that? I'm like, what is he doing? I was like, did he just take a nursery rhyme?
yeah. That's a double Dutch song, like the
Right. I was like, calm down, baby. I'm like, it's like, and you know, it was one of those things is that I'm young,
mhm.
I'm still in high school. Matter of fact, I met him at Manifest. He came to Manifest when
Oh,
Country
cool.
Grammar. Yeah, I met Nelly when he first came out. He was late as hell. Um, he was. You know, he showed up late. He fell asleep in the hotel room. Showed up super late for the for us. But it was one of those things. It was so ready for radio.
Oh yeah,
It was like it was too much for me. I'm like, hold on. I'm like Wu Tang is for the kids. you
yeah,
know. And so I can see them having that same effect too. Like, and we do that, and we miss out on great stuff about it because here's what I tell you. Because of that, I missed out on my favorite Nelly song until like I went back later, because my favorite Nelly song is actually EI, was actually the second single off of Country Grammar.
Yeah.
But because I kind of pushed him off to the side, I probably didn't become a fan of EI until like a year or two later when I'm in Greensboro at UNCG.
Yeah.
That's when I started listening to EI actually. It's like EI had been played out by then. But I kind of like pushed him into push baby in a corner. Like I was like, I don't know if this dude is with the Band-Aid and the baseball jersey and the cotton candy ass beat with the nursery rhyme. Like, no, I'm out. You know, when you go back and listen to the song, he's talking about using a street sweeper in the song too. So it's like he was actually connecting the dots better than I was giving him credit for. But the appeal and the look of it to me, I was a Wu-Tang guy, and a bit was like, no. It's like, where's the Thug Life tattoo? Like, where is that? No Thug Life tattoo, a Band-Aid? No, that's not gonna work for me.
Yeah. And this song works the same way, the BOXER does. I mean, in the sense that like the chorus is just lie la lie lie la lie 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 la lie lie la lie. I mean, that's the whole thing, right? Like it's just not it's just it's not quite the Seven Dwarfs Whistle While You Work, but it's that kind of like I'm just kind of singing to myself in a non-lyrical way. Like so people that's one of those things where I think people were hooked with the la 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 la.
Okay, so
and didn't like pay attention terribly much to the pretty dark story in the song.
Well, that's what I mean. So, I was actually thinking that like the hook is kind of part of what made me realize that it was kind of a traumatic story, because it's almost like I took it like he was walking and like tuning out the pain by using the repair. That's how I come from, a place of trauma. And so like I was hearing things in this song, it's like, oh, he's writing about his trauma. Oh, he's dealing with his trauma. La 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 la. I take that. I know that's the hook and that's the simple, stupid buy-in, but it's something about that kind of alludes to the trauma. It's like, well, forget about all that just happened. La 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 la. You know what I mean? But
that second verse, he does it too. He actually, that's the only place where he does the la la's in the verse. But the end of that verse is all lies and jests. Still a man hears what he wants to hear and disregards the rest. And then la 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 la, like he does la 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 at the very end of that verse too. And that's the disregarding the rest part, right?
I mean, that's brilliant songwriting, but that also speaks to what? Trauma. Right. That's what you do when you're going through trauma. So it's like the trauma is all over the song, and that's what made it feel, I guess, more grittier and personal. And so
he's talking about masculinity and like what it means to be a man, and like he's pulling from like his experiences, right?
This is what I mean. So this is what I mean about his traumatizing. It's almost like, well, his dad is abusive and telling him that he's not man enough, so he's out on this journey to prove to his father, I am a man, damn it.
Yeah, I mean, there's the whole verse about like nobody talked to him except the whores on 7th Avenue, like that, and he says, and like sometimes I was so lonely I took some comfort there. Like that's being a man, sort of, or not really, but like, you know what I mean? Like he's doing a thing that that makes him feel like he's being a man.
Right. So is he saying that as a young man I'm buying prostitutes? Is he saying
that's what the lyric is?
Yeah, the lyric is pretty much saying is like, well, what he's speaking to now also too, and this is what I mean about was kind of traumatizing. Well, he must have been socially awkward. What kind of 14, 15, 16-year-old boy is buying hookers? Yeah. You know what I mean? Somebody who's socially awkward that kind of maybe be feeling a certain type of way about his
and doesn't know how to talk to people, not even just talk to girls, but talk to people, period. Because I mean, he says he did it, like the lyric says, sometimes I was so lonesome I took some comfort there. Like it's like I couldn't get anybody to interact with me, so I had to pay somebody to do it, basically. Right.
And songwriters, the most brilliant ones oftentimes, super introverts. Super introverts at times can go on spells where they really don't talk or deal with anybody if it's not musically related.
Yep. Yeah. And Paul Simon always has come off that way. Like, I mean, he's gregarious enough and he has conversations with people or whatever, but he definitely comes across as somebody who would have had to learn how to talk to people, I guess. And then the last verse of the song is about the boxer, like the actual boxer. In the clearing stands a boxer and a fighter by his trade, and he carries a reminder of every glove that laid him down or cut him till he cried out in his anger and his shame, I am leaving, though the fighter still remains. That, like,
that's a metaphor, right?
Yeah. He's, I mean, you could,
So
if we're going down the road that we're just talking about, that's the parental figure, right? Like
right.
he's like either looking at the parental figure or looking at himself in the future, and seeing like how the scars, from all the fights that this person has been in, have affected him, have changed who he
I think
is.
so. I think he's projecting
Yeah.
that what all the scar tissue and trauma has done to him into the man that he's going to be,
Mm-hmm.
which is like, so almost it's like, you see, you called me soft and I ended up being a boxer, a fighter.
Yeah.
That's why it's called the boxer, right? Like,
Right.
look at me, Dad. I'm really a fighter. I'm really strong. I'm tough just like you. I'm strong just like you. Look at me, Dad. It's like borderline a cry for help, in my opinion.
Yeah. But he's also, and at the same time, it's still like
A healthy cry for help, like in a therapeutic way.
exactly. And it's almost a song of, or a verse of forgiveness too, because like it's a, like, I see what this shit has done to me, so I sort of understand why you were the way you were, right? Is that kind of thing.
So even when you were saying that, this is like, so there's two ways that I look at this as a songwriter. It's like, man, if this story isn't real, he's as good as a songwriter as they come, because he is able to tap into the emotions of a real life situation.
Mm-hmm.
But that's another thing about great songwriters, is that they make it feel so real to you. And this feels so real, like he lived it, you know?
I would argue that this would be like those movies that are based on a true story. Like he's like pulling maybe something from his life,
Yes.
or pulling things from other people's lives and kind of combining them to make the story more compelling.
See, this is what I mean. When you're a great writer, let's say Dad was an alcoholic and Dad got abusive one time. You can take, when you're a great songwriter, you can take that one time that Dad was abusive. Like, Dad might have been an alcoholic the whole time, but that one time Dad got abusive. A great songwriter can take that and make it seem like, oh, no, he's been You get what I'm saying? That's like, that is part of the creative.
Or they can even like take stories like they heard from their friends telling stories about it, and like incorporate those details and whatever too.
I've done that in song.
I have too.
My first album, I took a story that a friend told me about from Hawaii, and I turned it into like literally a whole story. Like, he told me like a brief version of something that happened in Hawaii, and I wrote a whole song about it. I made it into a whole nother story just because I thought that what he told me was super cool.
Yeah, I have many songs like that too that I've written that that I've taken like extrapolated like details out from a short story from somebody else.
I've written hooks that are based on conversations that I've had with people. It's like where somebody has said something. It's like, oh man, you want to know what if I put that with that? Be like, hey, hold on, I'll be back. Yeah, that's just part of the creative license. So it's like, I heard his songwriting genius in here as well.
He's an exceptional songwriter. Now Nas though is like otherworldly, man. Like, this is the first time I had paid attention to, I mean, I'd listened to Nas before, obviously, and listened to Illmatic before, but like listened to how densely interwoven the lyrics are. And it's one of those things, like they say about great artists, great movies, great songs, great things, that you see something or hear something different every time. Even if you listen to it 600, 700, 800,000 times, like and obviously I've not listened to the song nearly as much as you have, but I hear something different in it, or I recognize something different every time I hear it. And he's just like one of the most extraordinary poets I've ever heard.
Poetically speaking, I think he is hip hop's shining artist poetically. I mean, according to hip hop, and Mike and I do reference him as the greatest MC of all time. We do feel like he is the greatest MC of all time. But just on a poetic level, let's take the MCing out of it. Well, he's our foremost poet. That title is probably in modern day time reserved for Kendrick Lamar as a songwriter and a poet in hip hop terms. But I don't think hip hop has ever seen somebody as poetically inclined as Nas. just about the fact that he knows how to make the dreary sound beautiful.
Yeah.
It is hard to do in hip hop. What you hear in hip hop when the pain is being expressed is the pain.
Yeah.
Like, Ice Cube and Scarface and Chuck D are pissed off.
Yeah.
Tupac
You hear
is
that. Like anybody who's even if you've never heard the things, you can hear like 2 bars and you can hear it in their voice.
pissed off. Right. You can hear despair emotionally in other artists like Ghostface when he's talking about his home situation. All that I got is you. You get what I'm saying?
Yep.
To the point that it makes you want to cry. Nas doesn't do that. You'll get done listening to a Nas song and it'll actually make you almost feel proud that you're from the projects.
That's definitely the feeling I got from. I'm not from the projects, obviously, and I don't have that lived experience, but like that's the feel that I got.
It's the weirdest feeling. It's like he knows how to. The beautiful thing about Illmatic, the beautiful thing about The World Is Yours, the beautiful thing about Nas and that album is that it's a kid talking about the Queensbridge projects, but poetically, because of how he expresses these themes, and all the themes on the album are timeless. This is probably the most timeless theme next to Life's a Bitch.
Yeah.
He expresses it in such a way that you're almost hopeful. You're proud of where you're from. You understand what he's going through, and he actually makes you think that it's going to be okay without him ever telling you that it's going to be okay. He actually does quite the opposite on the song. He literally says on the third verse, I need a new nigga for this black cloud to follow.
Wow. Yeah. I that's one that I didn't catch in any of the dozens of times I've listened.
A new nigga for this black cloud to follow.
Wow.
It's too dark to see tomorrow.
Wow.
He's saying that on the third verse. So this is bleak circumstances, but it's being expressed in a way that's hopeful. And so let's express where it's coming from. So Nas is growing up in an era where he's a young man when Scarface comes out.
Right.
Okay.
Okay.
Scarface is big in hip hop culture because he represents what? Rags to riches. See, people always look at the drug dealing, they look at the violence, and they think that's why he is in great shape in the hip hop community with that movie. No, it's watching this dude who was an immigrant, who came from nothing, that literally ended up being like, his own boss. Like he was, he was literally in what, Montego Bay, I believe in the movie it is.
I think so, yeah. It was Greater Miami-ish.
Literally went from being a prisoner in like, in essentially an intermittent camp and being a boss. Now, how he went through it, was drugs and murder, of course, but the theme of that was really the come up. And the come up of it and the theme of it was what? The world is yours. He had a statue in the middle of his house that he died on, and it was a globe, and across the globe it says what?
The world is yours.
The world is yours. That became a hip hop ethos. So that's not a Nas ethos, because here's the thing. He's not the first one to touch the ethos. First of all, Nas's favorite rapper from his time is Slick Rick.
Okay.
Slick
that
Rick
tracks.
Yeah. Like I tell people, it's like, well, there's only been one document picture of another rapper hanging in Nas's house, and that's Slick Rick. We know that there's a painting of Slick Rick hanging in Nas's house. He's a big Slick Rick fan. He's used Slick Rick's cadence, flow. He's a big Slick Rick fan. One of Slick Rick's best songs off his album, The Greatest Adventures of Slick Rick, is called Hey Young World. Here's how the hook goes. Hey young world, the world is yours. Hey young world, the world is yours. Young world, the world is yours.
See, wow.
Right.
I told you teach me a lot of stuff about this today.
That's actually probably my favorite Slick Rick song.
Wow.
Now you can see why. It's coming from the place. Another one of Nas's favorite rappers is from Houston, Scarface. Scarface took his name
from the,
Right. You know what Scarface's second album is called?
No, but you're about to tell me.
Right.
Yeah.
So Nas is doing The World Is Yours as a 16, 17-year-old in 1993, 94, or I think 17, 18-year-old. Well, he's pulling it from a place of the people he's inspired by. He loves Scarface. He loves Slick Rick. So he's given his interpretation of it. And there's so many pieces of hip hop to this song. So I want to explain how this song starts off. Nas has an MC on Illmatic is the meeting of Rakim and Cool G Rap. And we've talked about Rakim.
Yeah.
Cool G Rap is literally probably the best, lyrically the best gangster rapper to ever come out of the East Coast. He too is from Queens. He's from Corona, Queens, as a matter of fact.
Okay.
Rakim and Cool G Rap are different type of dudes. Rakim is knowledgeable and poetic.
Okay.
But he's still got a street sense to him.
Mm-hmm.
G Rap's a dealer. He's a street dude. He's talking street stuff all the time.
Okay.
Nas is growing up in Queensbridge. Okay.
Right.
Now listen, the guy that put him on Large Professor, the producer that put him on Large Professor, literally is doing Cool G Rap's second album, I think, Wanted Dead or Alive, and Rakim's third album, Let the Rhythm Hit Him, at the same time.
Oh, wow.
In Queensbridge. A young Nas at 12, 13 years old is sneaking into the back end of these sections. He might have been a little older than that. So Cool G Rap and Rakim are the peak, along with KRS-One, MCing and lyrics are for the previous era. Nas is getting an up close view of these guys. He's
and their creative process and like how they're putting stuff together.
Wanted Dead or Alive is Cool G Rap's best album. And if you want to talk lyrically from beginning to end, you could argue that Let the Rhythm Hit Him might be Rakim's best lyrical performance from beginning to end, although he peaked more on Follow the Leader.
Okay.
Nas is, because of where he's geographically located, because Cool G Rap is from Corona, Queens, and Eric B of Eric B and Rakim, I believe, is from similar area. Marley Marl, who, you know, these guys are all around Queens and Queensbridge. So a young Nas is getting to go into the studio and listen to literally the two best lyricists who ever lived, put down some seminal work. So his poetic, like, he's already gifted, but he literally got to watch the two best lyricists do it.
Yeah, that's super cool. I didn't know that. That's an awesome story.
Right. That's why it's like, well, you need to understand he's such a part of hip hop culture, even with the little nuances and stories like that. No. Like, this is the kid that literally, he wants to rhyme so bad. He's going in after Cool G Rap and Rakim's session because he wants to hear what they're doing, because he's measuring himself up against them.
And that's what that first verse is, right? Like,
so the first verse is straight out of Rakim and Cool G Rap's book. And here's how I'm going to explain it. He says, I sip the Don P, watching Gandhi till I'm charged in. Well, that's both of them. I sip the Don P. Well, that's that fly gangster talk that Cool G Rap does. Watching Gandhi. Well, that's the Rakim part. So you immediately, if you know the story, can see the fusion of the styles right there on the first bar. I sip the Don P, watching Gandhi till I'm charged in. And then you hear Nas writing in my book of rhymes, all the words past the margin, as in, I'm really sick. Shit, you know what I mean? So he's letting you know. So that's what I mean about poetically. His stuff is like a hip hop class. If you know hip hop, you can hear the Rakim and the Cool G Rap in the first bar. Then you hear Nas on the second bar, and from there it just unravels from there. And so my question to you is like, which way do you want to pick and point at? You know, because he does something as a storyteller that I think only he and Ghostface do it the best. They do a detail in a that you can relate to because you do it yourself. You know?
But the thing is,
speaks about the flim on the street. Suede Timbs on my feet make my cipher complete. It's like, no, okay, so now I'm getting the visual aid. He's stepping out of his building. His Timbs are on. It's a muddy day in New York. You know, he's setting the scene for you with a little nuance. Just him. And this is what I mean about poetically. Well, he doesn't say spit. He says what? Flim.
Yeah.
That's the writer coming out. That's the poetic nature of it. Go ahead. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to cut you.
No. This is, I want you. I love it when you like quote the lyrics. It makes me happy. And I think it's one of the best parts of the show. But we've talked about this with a couple other hip hop artists too, that I love when they illustrate a scene so well that somebody like me who has none of these personal experiences and very little context for them other than the conversations that I've had can still not experience them, but like can like experience him like you're reading a book, or experience him like you understand. Even though I've never had that experience, I can still recognize like what he's talking about.
Right. So let's just start unpacking the verse, the first verse. So we got the I sip the Don P watching Gandhi. I'm charging. I'm pulling it up because it's kind of important that we break down kind of line for line some of the stuff that's going on.
Yeah.
So Rakim has a song called Microphone Theme. Okay. Rakim was the first person that really made it. He made MCing cool. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Like he made the love of MCing cool and popular. And so when he's talking about to hold the mic, I'm throbbing, I'm fiending. Get it? Like Rakim, the microphone fiend, to hold the mic throbbing. Well, I can't say I'm the microphone fiend because I'm not Rakim, but to hold the mic throbbing. And then he says it, and listen to what he says: mechanical movements, understandable smooth shit that murderers move with. That's Cool G Rap coming back again. You see how you can see stylistically?
I do, yeah.
This is Nas, but I want you to see where he's getting his style from. Understandable smooth shit that murderers move with. Well, he poetically is more inclined than anybody that's coming before him. He's living in the most notorious housing projects. When he's saying understandable smooth shit that murderers move with, he's literally telling you, no. I live in the toughest projects and everybody loves my shit. I got that understandable smooth shit that murderers move with. Like my style is this type of style that even the killers in my neighborhood like my style. Like he's letting you know how fly his style is. That's one of those ethoses that come with hip hop.
Okay. Yeah.
Nas is the best at telling you how great he is without saying that he's great. This is the first example of it, actually.
Oh, cool. Yeah.
This is the first example on record of him telling you how fly he is without him telling you that he's fly. He doesn't really do it. He just tells you to hold the mic, I'm throbbing. Mechanical movements, understandable smooth shit that murderers move with. He's letting you know.
The amount of rhymes in that line and the way it's insane.
It's crazy. So listen to what he say. And this is why I mean the song is important. Well, he says the thief's thing. Play me at night, they won't act right. All right. First of all, he ends up making a song called The Thief's Thing. So he continues the legend of this song, even with his own song making. But listen to what he's saying. Play me at night, they won't act right. The fiend of hip hop has got me stuck like a crack pipe. Remember what I just said about Rakim and the microphone?
There's the fiend, yeah.
Now he's letting it out. How is he contextualizing it though?
About writing. Yeah.
Right, but he's contextualizing it to the things that he's seen at night in his projects. Thieves, murderers, crackheads. This is all the first 5-6 bars. So we got a guy, you know, he loves to write. You know, everybody on the block likes his style. You know, he's out with the worst of the people at times, but it seems like he's only concerned with rhyming. And then he says, the mind activation, react like I'm facing time like Pappy Mason. Okay, now he's going local. Pappy Mason, and this is something that I didn't find out till later. Pappy Mason's a notorious former drug dealer that used to be part of Supreme Team.
Okay.
They were like the biggest drug organization that came out of Queens when Nas was a kid.
Okay.
Pappy Mason was the hitman for the crew.
Okay.
So when he's talking about facing time like Pappy Mason,
right?
Well, he had a
serious time.
Yeah, he didn't just have the drug charges; he had all the murder charges too. Yeah. That's that hood legend stuff. That's so people in Queens, when they're hearing this 17, 18-year-old talk about,
they would have known who he was talking about, and they would have known like the references and understood.
So he's striking a chord with his community and his neighborhood with all of this. That's what I mean about this is wonderfully local, but everybody's neighborhood kind of works like this. It's like, well, in every project, there's a Pappy Mason. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, exactly.
In every hood, there's a guy like Nas that everybody loves to hear rhyme that we call the, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I've been that guy a time or two. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then we go to the visual aid. See, now that he's contextualized everything for you, he lets you know who he is, where he's coming from, and that he's the new version of the microphone theme, much like Rakim. Okay. And then he gives you the visual aid. Wipe the sweat off my dome. Spit the phlegm on the street. I love the fact that he uses phlegm. He's showing his talent as a writer. He is.
Yeah.
Suede Timbs on my feet makes my cipher complete. As in, this is what makes me feel good. I have a friend, matter of fact, well, he's not a friend anymore. He did some very unfortunate things. You remember Deron Cuthbertson?
Yeah. He was a Piedmont guy. Yeah.
Yeah. Deron did some very, very heinous things. But once upon a time, Deron said something that I thought really struck a chord with me as a black man, because most black men feel this way. As a black man, there's nothing better when you start off your day and you can get a fresh haircut and a fresh pair of shoes on your feet. There's something about it as a black man that makes you feel good. So when Nas is talking about his cipher being complete after he's put his Timbs on and wiped the sweat off, well, there's something about that as a black man that you relate to, especially around that time, because Timbs were a big thing. Like, he could have said Air Force Ones or Jordans, but it's the scene that he's setting of a black man stepping out into the world. Well, we don't like stepping out into the world without fly kicks. Timbs were the fly boots. So he's speaking for like every black man coming out of New York, in the sense at the time, with just that visual aid.
Okay.
You know?
Yeah,
because Nas was the guy with the fresh haircut and the fresh Timbs and the fresh look. And he's giving you the visual aid of that on his second single, because this is actually the second single on Illmatic.
Okay.
He said, whether cruising in a skis cab or Montero Jeep, I can't call it. The beats make me falling asleep. See, he's going back to this microphone theme thing. See how he keeps bringing back all this dreary stuff's going on. I'm a writer. I'm an MC, and a great one.
This is how I'm transcending all of this, right? This is how I'm getting out. This is how I am, processing it too.
This is how I'm processing it. And this is how he said, I keep falling, but never falling 6 feet deep.
Yep.
So he's letting you know, no, it's bad, but I'm still here.
It ain't going to kill me.
And I'm fighting. It's not going to kill me. I keep falling, but never falling 6 feet deep. And then he says, the most famous line.
Yeah.
I'm out for presidents to represent me. Say what? I'm out for presidents to represent me. Think about it. This is a black kid coming from the most notorious project.
I wrote something down about this. So I want to hear what you have to say.
Right. Well, he's saying I'm out for presidents to represent me. Imagine a 17-year-old black man coming out of Queensbridge Projects, like, saying that seriously. That's why you hear the say what?
Yeah.
I'm out for presidents to represent me. No. Run that back again. Say what? And then he clarifies it on the third one. I'm out for dead presidents to represent me. And it's like, revelation. And then the hook comes in your soul.
Yeah, everybody's done at that point. Yeah,
you're done at that point, because as soon as he says, I'm out for dead presidents, you hear, whose world is this? The world is yours. And you're like, oh, the world is yours. It's mine. It's mine. It's mine. You're like, oh,
I'm there. I'm there.
I'm there.
Yeah.
I'm there with you. He got you, and it's over. And the first verse is the simple verse. Like the MC, the MC is on the second and on the third verse. That's what I mean. The first verse is what's striking, is because it's like, this is his idea of a simple, stupid buy-in, Andrew. That's how poetic.
And that's like so fucking high level, man.
Think about this. This was his buy-in to get people to sing along with him. You know how poetically inclined he is, that this is his buy-in? And so where he was always different from Biggie and Pac and Jay. They're not nuanced as writers like this. Like, Pac isn't deep of a writer, but Pac is not going to use words like phlegm, mind activation, react like he's not going to use those alliterations like that, And so this guy is special in terms of how he disseminates information and expresses it to you. That understandable, smooth shit that murderers move with. It's like nobody had ever talked like that before, but when you hear him rhyme, it's like, no, that is you. Like, he's kind of calling his own shot on the first verse. Like, this is who I am. And it's like, well, damn, he is that guy. Yeah,
because he would have written it before he was like recognized widely
before he became this guy. But what I'm trying to say is that he was kind of always this guy around the neighborhood even before. Like, other MCs have talked about him and be like, no, we knew that
this was going to be the guy.
Other guys have come back and talked about it now. It's like, no, everybody knew. Like, and so he's speaking to that, he speaks to it on the album some, about, he's considered to be a child prodigy. He's 19.
Yeah, he was really young when he did this.
Well, he's 19 when this album is coming out, but he was only 16, 17, 18 when he wrote this stuff. So, he's in high school, he's a 10th grade dropout, so he's not even in high school. So that's the buy-in of the song. It's funny. I don't listen to this song that much anymore. And so going back and going through the lyrics of it again, this is, I mean, this as well as anybody because you've known me half my life. This is my theme song,
Yep.
like like my number one theme song. And it's funny, I only play it now when I need to hear it. And so it's kind of funny going through the breakdown of it because it's like it's even reminding me going back through the lyrics of why I loved it so much. It's because I related to it so much. I related to his ethos. You know,
Mm.
there was a lot of kids like he and I that were just really starving for an opportunity to get out to express who we really were. And that's what you really hear on this record. And I think everybody takes a piece of this record that loves it in that manner, you
Mm-hmm.
know.
The first thing that I wrote about this song is that is basically what you just said. I can't imagine how captivating the song was for a kid in 1994, hearing like desperation, sweat, intensity attached to like the actual writing process coming from another teenager. Like, I can't, because I can't have your lived experience, but like I know you well enough to know how that would connect with
Yeah.
the kid that heard it for the first time.
Yes, this connects with that 13-year-old kid to the point that it's like the 40-year-old like it's funny, some of the songs that help you get through your childhood trauma remind you of your childhood trauma
Yeah.
when you become an adult.
Yeah.
And so
So it's harder to
this
listen to then. Yeah.
that's why I don't listen to it as much because, well, for what my life was and for what I was going through, I needed this song to get me through. You
Yeah.
know, like
Mm-hmm.
when you hear artists talk about, like, DMX was always good for this. He's like, so many people talk to me about how like this song got them. No, this is one of those records where it's like, no, 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 this got me through some stuff,
Yeah.
and I'm not going through that stuff
Right.
anymore. But every time I listen to it, it reminds me of the circumstances and the odds that I beat. It
Yeah.
was part of my motivation to beat it. It was the reminder. This is what I played every time I felt like I couldn't win. Every time I felt like I was falling, but not falling 6 feet deep.
Yep.
This
Yeah.
is what I played. And so, it's beautiful when you have records like this that connect with people on a traumatic level, but give them a positive outlook. I bring up
Yeah.
DMX because he actually was probably the best since Tupac at that.
Mm-hmm.
It's like he would be talking about a dark and a dense circumstance, but through him expressing it, you knew that you weren't alone and you didn't feel so alone and so isolated, and you knew it was going to be okay. So on a personal level, that's what this record is for me. It got me through a lot. But it's
And that's
also
what the BOXER does too. Like, I mean, that song didn't do it particularly for me, but I mean, there are lots of songs that did, which we'll talk about later. But it is another one of those. I'm just a poor boy, though my story is seldom told, and like I've squandered my resistance in a pocket full. Like, it is poetic, but it is also like I'm a poor kid wandering the streets of New York. Like, it's um and the New York part doesn't connect necessarily with everybody, but the like everybody knows what it feels like to feel alone, and like that you're I can only imagine, because I didn't grow up there, but how being in New York would intensify that feeling, because there's always people there, but still feeling alone as you're moving through that. Like, and that's kind of what he's expressing, Nas is expressing too. I mean, you have that kind of ethos in both of them.
I was about to say both of these songs do a good job of making you only see one thing in one person in what is a crowded sphere, and
Yeah.
not even the area that they're in, just the way that they're speaking. It's almost like they have the ability with their songwriting to give you tunnel vision, their
Right.
tunnel vision. Both of
Right.
these records do that.
And the song, I mean, the BOXER's talking about wandering on 7th Avenue, which is not a it is a densely populated area.
Right.
It's not like where he grew up or whatever. It's like we're talking about Manhattan now. So yeah, I mean, they're like, I mean, I've referenced this before, the aiming guns and all my baby pictures. I think that's
Yeah.
like one of the most perfect lines to ever be written in any song ever. Like of if you're trying to encapsulate somebody's struggle and their life and like the entirety of their life and how difficult it was, that's even like half a bar, really. Like, it's that those like what 5 words, 6 words, 7 or something like that capture that just like that.
So he's going back and forth between giving you his ethos and explaining what's going on in the neighborhood.
Right.
You know? And so if you go right after that, he's like aiming guns in all my baby pictures. But let's go to the next bar, because I think the most important bar that's explaining some of his despair is actually the next bar, which goes, beef with housing police. Release scriptures that's maybe Hitler's. Whoa. So listen to what he's saying.
Yeah, I didn't catch that. I caught it when you just said it, but like,
right. Beef with housing police. Release scriptures that's maybe Hitler's. He's literally saying, these aren't police that are running around my neighborhood giving us problems. These guys are moving with the etiquette of the Nazis. They're not police. They're like
Gestapo. Yeah.
He's saying their scriptures, as in their code.
Yeah, is Mein Kampf. Yeah. Yeah.
Is Mein Kampf. Their scriptures are Mein Kampf. That's what I mean. It's like, man, this is a 17, 18-year-old kid explaining the beef. And he's literally saying beef with housing police. He's explaining the beef with the housing police in one bar.
Like specific ones too. It's not, and he's, I mean, this is not the time necessarily to talk about the community's relationship with police generally, but like he is differentiating. For the purposes of this song, we're just talking about this small group of people.
Well, let's also too explain what I mean about some of the despair. Well, he's talking about the housing police. He's in the largest housing projects in America. So some of the despair, he's letting you know that he's really not going past these blocks. He's expressing that beef with housing police, as in like, I'm really not seeing past these blocks, really. Like, this is what's going on these 4, 5, 6 blocks right here. You know?
And that's it. That's really cool, because so like this, I mean, the song's called "The World Is Yours," like the world, but his world is just
6 blocks.
Yeah.
It's 6 blocks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that contrast is cool too, because with the BOXER, because he's wandering like all over New York City.
No,
like
he's not wandering all over. So listen to what he says right after that. He says, release scriptures. This may be Hitler's. And then he goes, this is what I mean about how he flips it back. This is where this is how he keeps you and doesn't attach to the despair too much. Yet I'm the money. Yet I'm the mild money getting style, rolling foul, the versatile, honey sticking wild, golden child.
That's another one of look how great I am kind of things. Like this is
what you do in hip hop when you're proving yourself. See, he's still this isn't Nas that we're calling the greatest MC of all time. This is a 17, 18-year-old kid trying to establish himself. And so The World Is Yours is his ethos song. It ain't hard to tell in The World Is Yours. They're ethos records about who Nas, the person, MC is, and what borough and what hood he's representing. Right. That's all the first 2 singles are. And so you get his whole steez in these brief bars, but if you miss it, you won't catch it. So he's letting you know, I'm mild, as in I'm calm, I'm low key, but I'm getting to my money, right?
Yeah.
But I'm rolling foul, like I'm doing things wrong to get to my money. You get what I'm saying? I'm getting money, but I'm rolling foul up. I'm doing wrong things to get my money. But I'm versatile, as in like I got depth. I'm not your typical dude that's out here doing wrong. Right. I'm different. I'm different than these other dudes.
Have other options.
Well, he says, I'm the honey sticking wild, golden child. The ladies love me, and I'm the chosen one in this community. Like, I'm different. And that's what I mean. He's the best at telling you how great he is without you realizing it. Because all the other guys...
He slid that one by me, for sure.
Right. He slides all his I'm so great by you. That's part of what makes him so poetically inclined. No. You hear Jay-Z talk about how great he is. Yeah. You hear Biggie talk about how great he is. You hear Tupac talk about how great he is.
Even I, who didn't grow up in this community, like I can quote all 3 of the ones you just named of lines of them talking about how great they are. Like even I can do that.
And it's hard to do that with Nas because when he does it like this. So this one, I mean, this is his ethos record. He's even showing you how he talks about himself, because how he talks about himself on this record, well, that's how he baselined it for his whole career. He never talked about himself highly or too much.
It's mild, right?
Hate Me Now would probably be the most grandiose he got. You know what I'm saying? Which was literally talking about all the hate that he was getting for being successful, which goes back hold on, which goes back to what is he saying on here? I'm the golden child.
Right.
People
And
felt
nobody
that way.
and nobody likes the golden child, like in the wider community. Like, you think somebody's putting him on, or somebody has like given him the silver spoon and kind of helped him along or whatever. But no, the dude is so skilled. Like,
no all-time great MC has dealt with the conflicts that Nas has dealt with either. And so that whole golden child thing kind of stuck and held key to everybody, because like
people coming after him too. Yeah.
People coming after him about that status, but even the way he's revered, like you got somebody like Ghostface Killer. Ghostface is many people's favorite MC and a top 10 rapper all time by all estimations to most people.
Mm-hmm.
Ghost looks at Nas a certain way. It's like he was doing when him and Raekwon was doing their verses. He literally told Raekwon when they were talking about Nas, he was like, yo, he's like, it's like the nigga Nas was blessed by God or something. I told that nigga when I seen him. Mm-hmm. Like, he has an aura like that. To the other great MCs has MC. This is part of the aura, though.
Okay.
This is part of how that aura was built, was his ability to slide like this on record so seamlessly from topic to subject matter. You know, this is how it happened. These other dudes, they're as good as him. They're not talking smooth like this. Like Tupac and Biggie aren't fluid like this. Jay-Z isn't smooth like this, but Jay-Z is not around yet. And Jay-Z's talk is more Big Boy Dope talk at the time. You get what I'm saying?
Yep.
Nobody's talking poetically like this guy. It's very Rakim inspired, but it's kind of cool.
I can hear that.
Yeah, it's Rakim inspired, but cool G rap rhetoric. That's what I mean. It's the fusion. It's like, no, he's taking what the street guy is talking about, but he's talking about it poetically the way the poet is.
That's so hard to do. Like,
he's where the poet and the gangster meet in rap.
Oh, okay, cool. Like, that's a great encapsulation.
This is where this is where the poetic, this is where the gangster shit is like poetic. That's why he's considered to be the best. It's like the other guys that are kicking gangster shit, they're just kicking gangster shit. It's like he's poetic with it. Pick the Mac up, like on New York State of Mind. We talk, pick the Mac up, Toe Brothers back up, the Mac spit, Lead was hitting niggas, one ran. I made them backflip. No, dudes didn't talk like that if they were talking about shooting somebody before that.
Right.
It wasn't that detailed.
It's so hard to do both. I mean, it's like we talked about in the Joni Mitchell episode, like like somebody who has the voice and has the lyrical content. Like, he's like being able to talk about those subjects and do it in such a way that is so tightly poetic is, I mean, I've never tried to do it, but I can imagine it's incredibly, incredibly difficult.
Right.
I mean, obviously it's incredibly difficult because he's basically the only one to do it. So, or at least at that point was the only one to do it. So, like a line like flipping coke or playing spit spades or strip poker. Like, I want to go briefly to this because I want to point out like how many sounds in that one line are echoed. There's so many. I mean, this, you could say this for almost any line in the song, but you have the eyes, the it, flipping, spit, and strip, the I sound. You have the P's, flip, playing, spit, spades, strip, poker. All of those are P's. You have the K. The actual rhyme is coke and poker, right? And that's the like the whatever.
No, actually, go ahead.
Go ahead. Yeah.
This is what I mean about what's great about him. You can break down the rhythmic consonants and dissonance, alliteration, and metaphor of one bar, but it's tied to the previous bar. Because here's where it actually really starts. Because here's how it goes. How you living, large or broke, a charge card or mediocre? You're flipping coca, playing spit, spades, or strip poker. That's how he said it.
Right.
It's like, it happens so fast and he's saying so many things. You're like, hold on, what? You're like, what? Like, guys aren't rapping like this in 1994.
Exactly. And it's like,
guys aren't putting this much information. Listen to what he's saying. Because he's answering his own questions. That's what I mean. This guy is gifted. He goes, how you living? Large, a broker charge cards or mediocre. You're flipping coke or playing spit, spades, and strip poker with a question mark. He's saying like, none of us are really living as fly as we think that we're living, although we claim that we're fly. And then the scratch comes in and goes, it's yours. He's brilliant.
It's like, amazing. But I wanted to do a brief English teacher thing there because I want people to like understand who are coming at it not from the hip hop world to understand like how densely rhymed and like how many of these sounds he's putting together all at once in like 5 words or 6 words or whatever.
Yes,
it's nuts.
Consonants, assonance, and dissonance is going on in all of it. It's happening like right here. And think about it. He's explaining a motif And in these 2 bars, he creates a satire for it with a question mark.
Yeah. Because he's making fun of them a little bit too. Yeah.
He's making fun of our community, thinking that we got it made than we don't, but he's not joking.
Yeah.
That's why I said it's more in satire form. It's like, it's not even in jest. He's literally saying it seriously. How you living large, broken charge cards are mediocre. You flipping coke or playing spit spades or strip poker. He's like, that ain't how we're supposed to be living.
Exactly. Yeah.
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 So he's speaking to the, it's beautiful because then it goes, it's yours. It's mine, mine. And you're like, oh, okay. And then he starts off the 3rd verse. I'm the young city bandit. Hold myself down single-handed. This plays a lot like the BOXER. The 3rd verse plays a lot like the BOXER's 3rd verse. For murder raps, I kick my thoughts alone, get remanded. Born alone, die alone.
Yep.
No crew to keep my crown or throne. I'm deep by sound alone. Cave inside 1,000 miles from home. As in my mind, when I rap, I go places 1,000 miles outside of these 6 blocks.
Yeah, like the world is his, right?
Miles. My style and my sound is so deep that when I go through the travels of my mind, it takes me out of these 6 blocks. It takes me 1,000 miles from home.
Yep.
So he's speaking to the despair right there. It's like in how the rap is helping him channel the despair. It's like, no, I get lost in my rap. What's he saying on the 1st verse? I keep falling, but never falling 6 feet deep. What's he doing when he's falling? He's listening to beats. How's he starting up the song? So the rhyme, music, rap is important to him. It's how he's escaping the despair. It's his ticket out. He's rhyming about his ticket out. And he literally says,
and he writes his ticket out with the song too. Like that.
This is the song that wrote the ticket out.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I'm saying.
No, that's what I'm saying. Like, no. He wrote his ticket out by talking about writing his ticket out on this song. Because this was his first song of note. Because It Ain't Hard to Tell is a hip hop classic. Yep. But girls weren't singing the hook to It Ain't Hard to Tell because it didn't have one. It's just a loop.
Right.
Girls who didn't know Nas were singing The World Is Yours because the hook is catchy. So
this was right. It is.
So he literally kind of wrote himself out of the projects on this record.
Yeah. And he's writing about, because he's writing about getting out. And he is, I mean, the song literally shows people that his argument is true. He uses the song to prove that his argument is correct, which is
when he's talking about
mind-bendingly amazing.
Right. Listen to what he's saying. I'm out for dead presidents to represent me. He's letting you know where they're not representing me yet. But I'm out for them to represent.
They're going to be, though.
They're going to be representing me real soon. That's what I mean. This song is his ethos song, and it really is speaking to the project. But it's also like low key. He's telling you how to get out. Because it's like, he keeps on telling you, well, I'm invested in something that's getting me out. What are you invested in that's going to get you out? The world is yours.
Right. Like, it's like the world can be yours. It's not like, it's like it. And it's one of those things, like, if I can do this, then it's available. Like, as a kid from Queensbridge, right? If I can do this, then it's available to everybody.
Right.
But I'm also sitting in my room writing past the margins on my note. Like, it's so you got to put the work in too.
Right. That's what he's talking about.
You got to care about it that much.
Right. He's like, I'm writing past the margin. I'm listening to beats till I'm falling asleep. I get so lost in my style that I feel like I'm 1,000 miles from home when I write.
Yep.
He's lost in his style to the point that it's like, well, shit. That's why everybody's probably calling him the golden child and saying that he's going to get out. This guy's apparently doing more work and is more invested in this than other people.
Exactly.
But even though all this is going on, but listen to what he says. I need a new nigga for this black cloud to follow.
Yeah.
Because while it's over me, it's too dark to see tomorrow. Trying to maintain, I flip. Fill the clip to the tip. Picturing my peeps. Now the income make my heartbeat skip.
Man.
It's heavy.
Yeah.
And I'm amped up. Listen what he keeps going. And I'm amped up. They locked the champ up. He's talking about Mike Tyson. That's how you know that this song got written in like 1991, 92. Even though you're only hearing it in 94. So you're hearing it when he's 19. He wrote it when he was 17. And the evidence is right here when he says they locked the champ up. Mike Tyson got locked up in 92. That's who he's talking about. Because to everybody up in New York, Mike Tyson's the champ. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Even, I mean, I'm down in Atlanta. It's Holyfield for us, but early 90s, when he's saying they locked the champ up, that's Mike. Yeah. Mike got locked up in 92. We're here in Illmatic in 94. So he actually wrote this song when he was 17. Because Illmatic, he's 19 or 94, you know? And so, and listen to what he says. Even my brain's in handcuffs, headed for Indiana, stabbing women like the Phantom. He's actually unraveling on the third verse. The black cloud's too dark. I feel the clip to the tip. My brain feels trapped. I'm stabbing women like the Phantom. I'm headed to Indiana.
Yeah.
And then he snaps back into reality. The crew is lamping, Big Willie style. Big Willie style. This is the first time I had heard Big Willie style get used. That was a term that was used in the early 90s to talk about somebody who had money, who had made it on the block. Oh, he's a Big Willie. He's got money. Like when Jay came into the game, Jay came in Big Willie style. Like Jay came in with money. Jay was a Big Willie when he came in.
Okay.
So that used to be a phraseology. Then he goes back to his ethos again. Check the chip to smile. As in, he's letting you know, well, I'm not a Big Willie yet, but check my chip to smile. Plus my profile's wild. He's submitting his resume to you. Slash through the flock wolves, burning dollars to light my stove.
Wow.
So he's letting you know, it's like, I'm not Biggie Willie style yet. I'm still using dollars to light my stove. Like the gas might go out, you know? Or walk the blocks with the bop, checking dames, plus the games people play. Bust the problems of the world today. And that's how the song ends. So he's letting you know. So he goes through all those travels. The third verse is where he's taking you in his mind. But at the end of the verse, he drops you back.
He's back.
Yeah. Bopping his head where he started the verse, spitting the phlegm out on the concrete. You get what I'm saying? He's
walked around and come back.
Well, here's really what happened. If you really want an actual visual aid of it, he came out of his building, hopped in the car with his man, started listening to beats, and he fell asleep at the end of the first verse. Andrew, he doesn't wake up until the last 4 bars of the third verse.
Wow.
The second verse and the third verse is him asleep. That's why he's talking about his style and the way that he is. On the third verse, where he goes home, where does he go? Yeah, I'm deep by sound alone, caved inside 1,000 miles from home. It's like he's in the, So he's like literally telling you, it's like I'm falling asleep at the first verse, and the second and third verses are literally like he's in a trance or in a sleep, and he pops back out of the trance when he pops back on the block. When he says, when he goes headed for Indiana, stabbing women like the Phantom, that's where the like dream/nightmare ends, and he pops back in to Queensbridge. The crew is lamping Big Willie style. It's a whole new scene now. He's back on the block again. So it's like he literally took you around the world in his mind, and then put you back on the block where he started.
Oh wow! So he is the amount of skill that it takes to.
He's doing a lot.
Not just.
He's doing a lot.
Tell you, like how his mind works, but also like put you in his mind and take you with him as it go, like that's.
Yeah, most people don't miss that part of the song. Yeah, he's picking you up and putting you in the car with him while he's asleep, taking you on a journey through his mind, and then dropping you back off when he wakes back up. Because the first verse, I keep falling, but never falling 6 feet deep.
So falling asleep, right?
Yeah, and he references that on the first record on Illmatic. It drops deep like it does in my breath. I never sleep, because sleep is the cousin of death.
Yeah.
It all connects with this dude on this album, and this is the song that connected with the listeners.
Yeah, it's such a great song, man.
It is. It's one of the best rap songs ever.
Yeah, it is. I mean, it's one that I'd heard before, but it was not one that I'd paid this close attention to until this. And it's awesome to get to talk through it with somebody who it means that much to. Like it's, and somebody who like truly like. I mean, there's songs that we can all talk about, both from either side of the spectrum, that we like listening to or whatever. And then there's songs that like hit you, right? Like, and this is one of those songs for you. And I'd known that it was one of the songs for you. So it's really cool to get to experience that and to walk through your mind with it, so to speak.
Well, you know, it's a beautiful record. It's one of those songs that made me want to MC. It's one of those songs that got, it's so many things to me. It's like, it made me want to rap. It got me through hard times. I still love the melody to this day. I'm still mad that Pete Rock and Nas never worked together again because this was their only collaboration. It's one of the best producer rap collabs you'll find, like period, point blank, in the history of rap. It's a wonderful moment of what I like to call pure hip hop. And when I mean pure hip hop, I mean the beat is enough. The guy behind the mic is enough, and you don't need more than what they provide.
Right.
The producer and the MC provide you with enough that you don't need anything more. And so I don't mean pure hip hop because it's New York. I don't mean pure hip hop because it's Nas. It's like, no, when a producer and an MC execute the way that they're supposed to on a track without all the extras, all the accessories.
Right.
Just the beat is infectious. The hook is infectious. The rhymes are brilliant. Well, there you go. You know, it can be that too. It doesn't have to be this big glossed up thing all the time. And so it's just really a beautiful record. And lyrically speaking, you don't get songs like this anymore out of singles from artists.
Yeah, I haven't heard one like this in a long time.
Think about, like, when's the last time you heard a Reps? Because I'll even say this for him. He doesn't make singles this lyrical anymore. I don't think he can. And maybe this isn't
he's not 17 anymore, right?
Right. He's not the 17 prodigy that's, you know, stuck in the projects, you know? But it does remind you of a time when, like, well, no, it's like, think about this. Think about how brilliant he is on this record. He's actually trying to prove himself to people on this record.
Right.
So many people
calling a shot.
Right. Well, I mean, I just wish people that are less talented than him would put the same effort towards there. You know what I mean? Exactly. That's what I'm saying.
But the two pieces go together, right? Like he was gifted. I mean, obviously, but also part of it is he is that gifted because he put that much effort into it. Like the two things work together. I mean, he was gifted, obviously, but in the way that like I could practice shooting a basketball like 10 hours a day for the next 10 years and never be Steph Curry, or I could never win a 100-meter dash at the Olympics no matter how hard I trained. Like I just don't have that. But
okay, so actually, well, actually, I think Steph is a good comparison because, well, Nas's dad is a jazz musician,
right?
Steph's dad is one of the best shooters of all time, his damn self. So both of these guys, respectively, at their craft, already come from good stock.
Yeah. So, but they have both the genetics, but they also grew up around the right. Like Dell would have shown Steph like this is what you have to do to be great. Like he would, and Klay Thompson's dad too. I mean, like all of them would have.
Right. So let's go to Nas right quick. Well, he's the son of a jazz musician. Well, because of where he was geographically located by chance, he literally got to watch the two best lyricists of all time, or two of the three, if you want to put KRS right there. But you got to understand, in 1991, he got to watch two of the three best lyricists ever up close.
And nobody gets to do that.
On top of the fact that he already is the son of a jazz musician, on top of the fact that he's already talented. And so that's where it's comparable to Steph. It's like, no. He worked, but it's like, look at the setup for success. It's like, no. Got good stock. Right place, right time for good fundamental teaching, and then did the work. Because here's the thing. Steph, I mean, and you remember this, Steph Curry did not come into the NBA as the greatest shooter of all time. He was a great shooter at Davidson.
Yeah, he was, but he wasn't like that. He wasn't like bending defenses and hitting 30-footers.
Conversation about him being the greatest shooter of all time. It's about year number 5 or 6, really.
Right.
And that's because he had started doing things because he did what? The work. And so it's like, well, you can have the genes, you can be in the right place at the right time, but you still got to do the work to be the greatest. And so, like, this guy has done the work, you know, and the evidence of the work was early on. So, and
Simon and Garfunkel works kind of the same way. Like, you have, I mean, at its root, like two guys harmonizing and a guitar, right? Like, so that's like the producer and the MC being like all you need to have a great song. So you just have one guy with the guitar, two guys, and like it's the best songs in rock and roll and the best songs in folk music and that kind of thing work very much the same way as you're describing. Like that you can play it just with one guy or one girl sitting there on the piano or on the guitar or whatever and singing, and that is all that you need.
some of the same stuff with Illmatic. It's like Illmatic is Nas working with 4 different producers, and each time he lines up with a producer, it's like, man, it's like, why don't you just do that? You know what I mean? Why don't you just do that? It seems pretty simple.
As we've discussed, it's really not at all simple.
Oh, no. It's like the hardest thing ever. But, you know, like as far as
so many people use bells and whistles because they don't have the skills to.
I'll tell you something that I've probably never shared with anybody else. It's so much easier for me to be a regular writer than a hip hop artist. The pool of words is exponentially larger, and the creative license is greater, as crazy as that seems. And I say the creative license, I say that in a writing sense, in terms of like vernacular, tone establishment. Like, you have to play so many games when you're writing a hip hop song, people really do not understand. That's why I was bringing up the first line on The World Is Yours. It's like, no, even Nas is playing the game. I sip the Don P. It's like, oh, even he has to play the game. Big Willie style. He has to. No,
he's kind of name checking, sort of. Yeah.
Like, right. He's doing the name checking, the name drops. It's Nas. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
He's been Nas since he came out. But it's like, no, even he's played those games. And that's what I mean about, like, it's so hard to write a rap song. It's like, you can write like something. And how about this? When you're doing hip hop, you can write something and it can be the best shit ever. And you'll record it. And people will be like, I didn't feel that. Or I didn't get that. But writing wise, it could be, it won't matter. And that's what I mean, because it's like, if you don't check certain boxes or do certain things, people be like, or I don't know. Like, people used to tell me all the time, be like, oh, you're spending too much time trying to save the babies. Why don't you just make me dance a little sometime? And I'm like, oh, you know what? But you deal with stuff like that in hip hop. Like, that's why I brought up, and I was meaning to say it. Rakim has a line on I Know You Got Soul where he goes, constant elevation causes expansion. I write my rhymes while I cool in my mansion.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like the buy-in again. Even the best are the ones that buy, you know, it's like, no. I'm a deep brother. Got a mansion.
I'm still winking at the other stuff too. Like,
right. I got a mansion. Did you hear me talk about my mansion right quick though? I write my rhymes while I'm cool in my mansion though. Right. And so that's the thing about writing a hip hop song, where it's like, well, if you miss some of that, you might miss people if you don't do that, you know?
Yep.
Yeah.
That's beautiful stuff, man.